Before we dive in, hit subscribe if you're brave enough to walk through the shadows with us, because once you enter this story, there's no unseeing what comes next. The flashing red and blue lights of Oklahoma City police cruisers painted the narrow suburban street in sharp, broken color. Neighbors stood behind yellow tape, hands over their mouths, eyes wide with a fear no community ever expects to touch their doorstep. It was just after 9 p.m. when the 911 call came in, a trembling voice reporting something wrong, very wrong inside the small rental home at the edge of the block. When officers arrived, the air felt unnaturally still, like the world itself was holding its breath. The front door hung open, swaying slightly in the wind. Inside, overturned toys scattered the living room floor alongside a tiny pink sandal lying by itself, as if dropped during a frantic run. Detective Mason Hale stepped inside first. He'd been on the force for 16 years, seen more than enough darkness to fill a lifetime. But something about this house tugged at him. Something was off, too quiet, too empty, too staged. And then he heard it. A low, steady growl from the hallway. A dog, locked behind a door, its nails scratching slow and deliberate against the wood. Animal welfare officers moved quickly to secure the animal, but the tension didn't break when they led the dog out in a catch pole. In fact, it only grew worse when Hale walked deeper into the home. At the end of the hallway, a bedroom door lay cracked open. The officers exchanged glances. No sound, no movement. Hale pushed it wider. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering lamp, a crib in the corner, a small blanket on the floor. And then, in the far corner, he saw the small, motionless shape. A toddler, only weeks away from turning 3. Her name was Locklynn. But what struck Hale wasn't just the tragedy of a life cut short. It was the strange, eerie silence surrounding everything. No crying, no chaos, no parents screaming in panic. No parents at all. Hale stepped back into the hallway, his voice sharp. "Where's Mom and Dad?" No one had an answer. But as the search expanded through the house, the clues began to surface, and each one felt like a punch to the gut. A hospital discharge paper from 2 weeks earlier, a report of an unmentioned previous incident involving the same dog, and then a locked cabinet containing something investigators didn't expect, a folder labeled DCF pending. Child Welfare Case Documents, unreported, hidden. As officers moved through the house, another team swept the backyard. That's where they found the parents' car, still warm. So why weren't they inside the house? Why wasn't anyone calling for help? As Hale stood in the doorway, radio crackling with updates, an officer shouted from the adjoining shed, "Detective, you need to see this." Hale rushed over. The shed door swung open, and inside, lying on the workbench, was a blood-stained towel. But what made Hale's stomach twist was what sat beside it, a bite sleeve, the kind used to train aggressive dogs, the kind no family with a toddler should ever own. And suddenly, the case was no longer simple, no longer an accident, no longer explainable. Because if that bite sleeve meant what Hale feared, then this wasn't just a mauling. It was something far worse. The shed smelled of motor oil and damp wood, but beneath it lingered something else, something metallic, unmistakable. Detective Hale stared at the bite sleeve on the workbench, its edges frayed, stained deeper than the towel beneath it. Whoever used it hadn't just been playing with the dog. They had been training it, conditioning it, pushing it. He stepped back into the night air, jaw tight. Across the yard, flashlights bobbed as officers searched for any sign of the missing parents. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound felt like a warning. Then the radio cracked. "Unit 14 to command. We've located them." Hale froze. Where? Half a mile south, walking down the road, calm, No injuries. Calm? After finding their child dead? It took 5 minutes for the squad car to arrive. Jordan McGuire stepped out first, tall, gaunt, his face expressionless. Behind him, Darci Lambert, cheeks streaked with dry tears, but eyes strangely distant, unfocused. Hale walked up slowly. "We've been searching your house. You didn't call 911. You weren't inside. You want to explain where you've been?" Darci swallowed hard. We needed air. At the exact moment your child was found dead. Convenient timing." Jordan's jaw twitched. "This was an accident. Is that why you kept dog training equipment in your shed?" Something flickered in Jordan's eyes, a split-second panic he tried to hide. "It's not what you think." But Hale already knew. This wasn't a family hobby. The bite sleeve showed bite patterns too deep, too controlled to be random. Someone was encouraging aggression. Someone was using that dog like a weapon. Inside the station, interviews split the parents apart. Darci cracked first. Her voice trembled. "We didn't mean for this to happen. Jordan just thought the dog needed discipline. He said Locklynn had to learn boundaries, that she shouldn't be scared of the dogs." "Scared?" Hale pressed. "Or hurt?" Darci's gaze faltered. 2 weeks ago, there was an accident. She got too close. He didn't want animal control involved. He said it would look bad, for us." "Bad or dangerous?" Hale pressed. Darci flinched. "He said people would judge, that they'd take her away." "So you didn't report an attack that nearly cost your daughter the year?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "He said he'd handle it. He always said that." Meanwhile, Jordan sat stiff in the opposite room, arms crossed. "The dog snapped, that's all. It happens." "But you owned 4 dogs, and only one was aggressive. Only one had been trained with the bite sleeve. The same dog that had attacked your daughter before."
Jordan didn't respond. Hale continued. "Tell me why there were scratch marks on the inside of the bedroom door. Tell me why the dog was locked in with your daughter. Tell me why she was alone." Silence. Stone cold silence. But silence in a case like this was never innocent. Just then, an officer hurried in, whispering urgently into Hale's ear. His face hardened. They had found something new, far worse than the training equipment, far worse than the hidden documents. A neighbor's security camera, with a clear view of the backyard and the shed from that same night. The footage didn't show Jordan and Darci leaving the house. It showed them standing by the shed, arguing in the dark, and then Jordan walked inside with the dog. 5 minutes later, he came out alone, and nothing in his expression looked like a man surprised by tragedy. Detective Hale replayed the footage again and again, each loop tightening the knot in his stomach. Jordan walking into the shed with the dog, emerging alone, the way he wiped his hands on his jeans before stepping back into the shadows. It wasn't panic. It wasn't fear. It was preparation. And now, for the first time, the question shifted from accident to intent. The interrogation rooms seemed to shrink as the truth cornered the parents from all sides. Darci trembled when Hale placed a still frame of the footage on the table. Jordan stared at it with a blankness that felt rehearsed, as if emotion were a mask he had no interest in wearing. Hale began quietly. "This footage shows you with the dog minutes before your daughter died. You took it inside that shed. Why?" Jordan didn't blink. "It was restless. I calmed it down." "Calmed it?" Hale leaned closer. "Or primed it?" Darci broke first. Her hands flew to her mouth, her shoulders shaking. "Jordan, please, just tell them." Jordan's voice stayed flat. "There's nothing to tell." Hale slid another photo forward. The bite sleeve, the towel, the marks on the bedroom door, and finally the autopsy prelim report. Darci's breath hitched when she read the first line. Locklyn's injuries showed signs of prolonged attack, not a sudden one, not a single snap. Hale didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. She fought. You locked her in with that dog, and she fought. Jordan's jaw tightened, the first crack in his mask. You don't know what happened in that room. No, but I know what happened outside of it. He tapped the surveillance photo again. You brought the dog out of the house to the shed, you did something to it, and minutes later, that same dog was inside your daughter's room. Darci's voice broke into a whisper. I told him not to go in. He said she was just throwing a tantrum. I heard her crying. I didn't know. I should have checked. Jordan turned on her sharply. Stop talking! Hale watched them, one collapsing under guilt, the other clinging to control like it was oxygen. But there was nothing left to grip, because in that moment, another officer entered the room with a printed report. Hale scanned it, exhaled slowly, then looked at Jordan. The dog tested positive for heightened stimulant levels. Someone fed it something meant to agitate, not calm. Darci froze. Jordan's expression finally cracked, and the truth settled over the room like ash. This wasn't a moment of negligence. It was a chain reaction set in motion long before that night. Jordan slammed his fist onto the table. You don't understand. She was always crying, always scared, always getting into things. I was trying to teach her. Teach her? Hale whispered, disgusted. By weaponizing an animal against your own child? Silence. A silence that confirmed everything. Darci sobbed uncontrollably now. I didn't know he was doing that. I swear I didn't know. But Hale's eyes were cold. You knew enough to hide the previous attack, enough to walk away from the house while your daughter lay dying, enough to protect him instead of her. By dawn, both parents were in cuffs, charged with second-degree murder, child neglect, and reckless endangerment. As Hale watched them led away, he glanced back at the quiet house, toys frozen where they'd fallen, a half-eaten birthday cupcake still on the counter, waiting for a celebration that would never come. Cases like this never left him. They echoed, reminders of how darkness didn't always lurk in strangers or shadows. Sometimes it lived in the very places meant to be safe. And as Hale stepped into the rising sun, he spoke the words he always saved for the ones that hurt the most. Locklynn deserved better. Then he turned away, letting the door close on the final chapter of a tragedy that justice could punish, but never undo. If you thought this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.